Hello, peoples of the internet. Today I have Evie in the room. She's came back into the room from outside. She's daring the outdoors and the plants, all the beautiful plants and all the beautiful mineral kingdom. Yeah, if you can see behind me, you can actually see those trees, and for days and days and days you could barely see those trees, and the sky was not blue, the sky was yellow, and that was due to the smoke in the Okanagan. And when it rolled in hard. And so that's one of the topics that I wanted to touch on today, is living within the smoke. And what I noticed with the smoke is, number one, it's lesser oxygen. You are breathing smoky air and you feel extremely fatigued. You feel just dead tired. And you can feel lots of glandular stuff, sinus stuff. A lot of people were getting headaches and migraines. And those are sort of the physical things. Some people had nausea, dizziness, all due to that sort of lack of oxygen and that inflammation of the lungs from that quantity of smoke. And at one point in time, about a week ago, maybe a little bit longer, the Okanagan was the worst air quality in the world. And so it was hitting us hard. So hard, actually, that you could not see around you, and there was ash everywhere. And it was hard to know, like, it was a little terrifying. I actually had to do some serious work internally just to clear fears, knowing that if I had to leave or if there was a fire nearby, I was going to know. My gut would tell me, and to trust my gut, and to trust that, you know, if we needed to get out, that there would be some sort of an alarm system, or somebody would knock on your door, as well as the internal alarm to leave. And so I had to clear so that I was aware of my own internal communications. And that's the similar kind of thing that I've had to do with the smoke. So emotionally, the smoke, I was driving to work the other day, and I was noting that just having the smoke in the air and the poor air quality, and, you know, the blocking of the light of the sun, for one thing, it melds days into each other, so it's really hard to tell what time of day it is, and it's really hard to tell days apart when it's just socked in like that. And that's hard on the human's mind. It's hard on trying to stay grounded and knowing what's happening, which I noticed all of these sort of physical effects started to lead to some mental effects. And I already, was working on, like, taking back my power from the fire and knowing that I'm safe and I keep me safe. I was also speaking directly to the fire because it's an element and it's a being, and doing energy work to try to collapse that fire in on itself, and a lot of purifying the air. But what I noticed when I was driving to work was this sort of underlying, for one, it was an underlying, I guess there's an anxiety there because you don't know where the fire's at, and is it going to come here, and is it going to affect you? So that there was that in there, which is also about us taking back our power. But it's an emotional state that needs to be faced. And then I was also noting anger, annoyance, frustration, towards not being able to get outside, towards just having to breathe in that air, especially because I just went back to work, and that started Monday, and the air quality in that building is nowhere near as good as the air quality in my house. So I was noticing it in the building all day. And so there was an underlying annoyance, frustration, not liking the experience. And really underneath of that was like an anger toward like the government, an anger toward whomever started the fire, if it was man started, an anger toward collectively, why are we going through these fires to this degree? Why is there so many of them? Why is it year after year? Like, what is happening that we're missing? And is it a lack of money going into these resources so that they can be fought properly? Is it a lack of cleaning up the forests? Is it a lack of people that have the ability to do that? Is it part of the cyclic changes of the earth at this time, and are we not prepared for those cyclic changes, and do we need to get together and figure something out? So there was a lot of those thoughts and a lot of anger, annoyance, and frustration due to those thoughts. And what I was noting is I was paying a price. So I was paying a price for holding that level of anger, annoyance, frustration, and then just, constant panic, I would say, and anxiety. And so I faced the feelings and I was like, it's okay, Lisa, it's all right. Humans feel these things sometimes. It's natural, especially in times like this. You're okay. You're all right. You're going to be okay. I love you even here. You're safe even here. I alchemize these spaces. And I was bringing that big mother love down into those spaces so that I could disintegrate those wounds with my own medicine. And I noticed after that I was way less drained. I was more aware. I was able to flow easier with sort of joy or happiness. And it was just another aspect of what could be faced in this time and what can be cleared. So are those good questions? Sure, they're good questions, but am I going to answer them right now in this moment? No. So am I going to be paying a price for holding them with emotion as an HSP or an empath or a sensitive or a vulnerable? Yeah. I'm going to pay the price for that. So I can hold the question in freedom. And even more so, what I did is I gave those prayers to the God source. So I said, in all my timelines, we find the answers to these questions. And we as a collective begin to work in these spaces to listen to nature and to listen to the cycles and to listen to the earth and to help one another so that these things aren't happening. So for me, as a sensitive and HSP, I think I mentioned in the last video, a big part of my righteous anger comes toward the suffering of the animals, and the animals that had to be left behind, and the bureaucratic red tape that prevented the animals that were left behind from being saved, quickly and even over time with like food and water, and for the forests that seem to be burning out of control. And those spaces for me are huge spaces that have been taking up my life force frequency and my ability to exist and my ability to exist in peace and to access creativity and freedom and the ability to relax and to repair. So I faced those spaces and cleared those spaces, and I do think those are spaces that collectively we're being called to clear. So on top of that, because these are very complex times and there seems to be a lot of chaos unfolding around us, There's also been a lot of sun activity happening in this time period. So there's been some higher frequencies and some ionic action in the earth plane, which has also added to some physical experiences for people who are sensitive to that. So you can see my brain for months is not working. So it's about feeling it, and I'm trying to drop into that state of feeling so that I can pull the information through. So again, nausea, almost like a flu-like feeling, you know, like before you're going to puke or something, you get that feeling of like tinglies, and then that rush of coolness on your face. Dizziness, fatigue, again, lots of people not being able to sleep, yet hard napping and then can't get to sleep at night, can't stay to sleep at night. I've noticed some really intense dreams. And yeah, so you'll see, like, I haven't put up a video for, I don't know, 2 weeks now, because I just couldn't collect the energy to do the work of it. And I also couldn't find a space because I'm, you know, starting this new job and everything, and the smoke, and my daughter is moving right now. You know, she's in the process of moving. She just got an apartment in Vancouver, which is really exciting for her. This is her first apartment, and it is creating some serious grief in me because she typically comes home in the summers. She's a student down there, and she's gone for 8 months and then comes back for the 4 months. And I've been heavy empty nesting with her specifically because I do have a son still. But me and my daughter have a different kind of a relationship where we hang out a lot and we do a lot of fun things together, like, you know, going to the beach and going for hikes and, you know, making dinner together and all that stuff. So it's a big impact in my life. And I've had to hold 2 spaces at once, and humans can do that. You know, we do that. That was, you know, something the God source was showing me before. Like, sometimes we're holding sadness while we're still holding excitement. Or sometimes we're feeling depressed while still feeling, you know, excited about something that we're wanting to create. Or sometimes we feel anger and we feel love at the same time. So we're complex beings, and we can feel more than one thing at one time, and that's normal. And we get to choose which one we want to hyper focus on feeling, you know, which one do you want to feel more of. And for me, I'm trying to feel, you know, more of excitement at this time. I know when she actually leaves, which is about a week from now, it's going to be, I'll probably be impacted harder, and will really have to give myself a lot of love in my grief, because grief comes with change, and grief comes with loss. And there's a lot of questions that have been coming up for me, like, who am I without her here? What does my life look like when she's not here? And when you're a mother or a caregiver, especially a single caregiver, the children become a large portion of your life. And so, Evie, thank you for the love. So you have to really allow yourself to feel these spaces. And the other day I was sharing this in our group check-in at work, and about 3 other moms were, you know, at tear states, and they were like, yeah, like, it's so painful, and people don't talk about this, and you're gonna feel it forever. And I was like, heck no, I'm not adding this in. I'm not feeling this forever. I'm going to let myself feel it all the way through and recognize that these are natural, normal parts of being human. These are natural, normal parts of relationships. These are natural, normal parts of loss. That it's okay to feel sad, that it's okay to feel the loss, that it's okay to grieve, that it's okay to let go of old modes of functioning, that it's okay to let go of old versions of yourself. And it's okay to develop or to discover. Develop and discover. Interesting. Watch my ABCs video. New aspects of yourself or new versions of yourself. We can create those new versions of ourselves over time. And create's actually above develop. Probably because you have a conscious hand in it when you're in creation. You're doing it purposely. And that's what I plan to do. And I recognize, and this is a lesson that I got a while ago, that things like this take time. It doesn't happen overnight. And the God Source was saying, like, into the future, because there's so many aspects of ourselves that we cut off, that we ignored, that we covered over, that we disconnected from, for the sake of being loved by people in the external realm, codependence, to belong. And we're going to be uncovering a whole bunch of those aspects of self as we move forward with authenticity. And we have a right to accessing them, and we have a right to exploring them, and we have a right to honing them, and we have a right to living through them. And speaking of that, now I can see why this piece of information that came in maybe 2 years ago has been percolating in my brain, in my mind for the last little bit. It's been reminding me about it, and it's saying, like, do a video on this, and here we go, because it's going to be in here. So I think at this time period, I was really struggling with who I am as a human being around my parts of self that are not the best. So not the parts of myself that aren't the strongest abilities. And at that time, the God Source was showing me that it basically was showing me this cylinder, that humans are like these cylinders, and almost like a toilet paper roll. That's what the cylinders look like. And then the cylinder had all these holes punctured in it, and some holes were tiny and some holes were large, and there was a hole here and a tiny one there and a little one there, and all the way around there was these little holes and stuff. And in a way, it kind of looked like like a record player that has those like kind of parts on it. So it was like that, except for if a record was like a cylinder. So it was a circular shape. And it was saying that all of us have a unique cylinder, that there are 7.8 billion, which is probably, I think it's higher than that, 8 billion, let's say, humans on this planet, and there's 8 billion unique cylinders. And we're born specifically with these unique cylinders because the God Source wants these experiences, because it's like this spider eye. The God Source is like an eye watching, and it's like this spider eye. Spider eyes have like hundreds of eyes inside its one eye, and it's so that it can see everything. It needs to see everything at once. It takes all the information from those eyeballs and creates a whole picture. And that's like the God Source. So all the humans are like, these separate eyes, and it gets a big picture of what it means to be human. What's it like to be a human that's got this specific cylinder with this hole here, that hole here, this hole here, that hole here, this giant hole, this tiny hole. And those holes will be your skills and abilities. Your sort of your competencies, like the things that you're good at, your gifts, your talents, and the things that you're no good at. And so you might have a really big hole in one place, which means you're going to have some smaller holes other places, because all those holes balance out in each of the cylinders. And so for me, I have a big hole in spirituality and like the ability to hone my sensitive gifts. And then I have a tiny hole in cleaning, a very, very tiny little hole in cleaning, which means, I mean, I'm not the best at it. It's not one of my best skill bases. And can I hone it and can I make it better? Sure I can. Because it's like a pinpoint. And that was the other thing, because it's a pinpoint and it's going like this, pinpointed light goes like this. A big light just kind of disperses out of the hole, but the pinpointed light goes really sharp and long, which means those things that are your pinpoints, they're going to take you longer. You're better at it if you go longer over time, if you take time to do it. So if I take meticulous time to do it, then that gift will come through stronger, versus my sensitivities for pulling in information is such a large hole that it just disperses out, and it's easier for me to do it. Now, the other thing the God Source was showing me about the cylinder is that if you berate and hate yourself on aspects of your cylinder, then you're going to create this sort of like what look like a black goo, and that black goo is going to start to plug up those holes. So if you're like, I'm not good at this, I hate myself because of this, I'm lazy, I'm stupid, nobody's ever going to love me, you're going to create that black goo, which is going to pour over that hole, and then that hole is going to get smaller and smaller, and it's actually going to be harder and harder for you to master that experience. So the key is not to do that to yourself, and to radically accept the fact that you have a tiny hole there, and maybe somebody has a big hole there and they're fantastic at cleaning. They clean every single day. They're amazing at it. It's one of their greatest gifts. It feeds their soul. That's awesome for them, but that's not my experience. And so I'm not going to hate and berate myself in comparison, because we don't have the same cylinder, and nobody does. We all have unique cylinders. I was just asking, because, I'm curious. So I was just asking sort of quickly there. But what about twins? Do twins have the same cylinder? No, they don't either. Not even twins have the same cylinder. So it's about radically accepting our cylinder. It's about radically accepting ourselves as we are. And how do we do that, you ask? The other thing it was showing me about the cylinders is that there's a light, a base light that comes up and through the cylinders. So that's this light that shines through the cylinders. And this is the light that's shining through your human being. And everyone has the same light. So that light that's inside me is the same light that's inside of Evie and her cylinder, and the same light that's inside the tree and that cylinder, and the same light that's in another human and their cylinder. So we all share the same light source. And if you can back from the cylinder into the light source at the center, then you can go into that watcher space, and you can give the medicine of love and acceptance, radical acceptance, to the cylinder, which is the human being that you're inside of, and you can give it the permission to be its unique self, knowing that it was born to be this unique self. And part of our purpose here is to fully experience the being that we're inside of. And if we're inside a human with this particular cylinder, then it's my job to fully experience this human with this particular cylinder. And the cylinder can't be changed while you're inside the cylinder. So your choice is to radically accept it and to explore it. So you're going to remember that I said that in our childhoods, a lot of us cut off parts and aspects of ourselves in order to belong, or because it wasn't accepted in our family systems. So for some people, that's going to be their spiritual gifts. It's going to be their sensitivities. For other people, it might be the ability to clean. So if you had a doer as a mother and you're a sickness, and I don't think I've done a video on these yet, but this is in my book. These are the toxic roles and that we play in the relationships, familial and other partner and even partner child, our own families, our original families, and the families we create. There's these specific toxic roles that we play, and that's the doer, the sickness, and the selfish. And if there's a doer, a person that does it all, then if you're a sickness, your job is to not do it all. Your job is to not be good at it, because your job is to be sick and to be weak and to be incapable and incompetent, so that the doer can feel good about themselves and can get what they want in exchange. So it's a false loving exchange. And so if you were, even the selfish probably barriered a lot of theirs, the doer probably really does hone the most of their cylinder. But if in your family system you were told not to be this thing, not to be a singer, it's annoying the people, not to be creative, because not to be an artist, because artists are bums and they don't go anywhere, not to be smarter than the people around you. You know, these are the things that we were taught in our family systems. Not all of us, but the vast majority of us in this existence, because we were living in the slavery matrix, and the slavery matrix teaches us to, one of the old rules is that you're not better than the people around you. Another rule is that if the person around you is hyperstimulated and you're over there singing, they yell at you because they want you to stop what you're doing. They're controlling the external realm, so they want you to stop what you're doing so that they can feel better instead of just alchemizing themselves. This is how the slavery matrix worked in family systems in the past. So they're going to shut down aspects of you. They're going to encourage you to shut down aspects of yourself. And out of love, some of us shut down those aspects. And so much so that we barriered and buried parts of ourselves at such a young age that we don't even know that they exist. We don't even know they're there. And the God Source was showing me that specifically. And that could also be multi-generational and ancestral. So if the ancestors learned to not be this thing because it was dangerous in that time period, then we might even be born with parts of ourselves that are already buried and buried in a self-protection mechanism. And some of those things are our abilities to connect to the God Source and to get creative and to love ourselves into wholeness. Those are all things that I had to uncover in myself and discover in myself over time, just through connection with the God Source. And it was the God Source, my higher self, my monad, my connection to those higher parts, that gave me that information and taught me how to clear those wound spaces so that I could access those parts of myself. And I know there's still more parts of myself that I haven't discovered and uncovered. And that's, I think in this time period, there's a lot of people feeling like nothing brings me joy, you know, like the things that I used to do aren't bringing me joy, you know. And one part of that the God source was showing me was that's us putting down the things that, we did because other people wanted us to. We did it to belong. We did it for the ego boost. We did it because people would love us if we were that thing. So we're putting those things down so that we can pick them back up a new way. If they're ours, or if they belong to us, or if they're part of our cylinder. And we're going to do it in the way of that mermaid. So there's a video on this. If you're interested in that, go back and look at that video. And in that video, the mermaid sings her song for herself. So she doesn't sing her song to attract the male. She sings it because it feeds her soul, because singing feeds her soul. It brings a light into her being. It helps her to connect with that soul part. And it creates magic inside of her and through her and into the water and into all of the marine life. So she's a healer in that way, but she's not healing for their sake. She's doing it because it feeds her own soul. It fills her up. It's her being in oneness. So that's why we're kind of getting bored of things, or things aren't working, or we're not finding joy in it, because we're about to begin to discover parts of that cylinder that have been hidden or in the dark or fully covered with that goo. And that's, I know, part of the process of what's going to come for me as I grieve the loss of my daughter and her no longer being in this house primarily, and beginning to live her own individuated life, which is normal and healthy and happy and sad at the same time. And so that process specifically for me is going to help me to find those parts of myself that I haven't honed or seen or practiced or unconditionally loved in my own self. And so I'm excited for that. That's going to be exciting, because that's our futures. All of us are going to do this into the future, is what the God Source told me. We're all going to do it in our own ways. And I had said to the God Source at one point in time, like, how do I find those lost parts of myself? And I remember going into a lost part of the self, and the lost part of the self was terrified. It was scared. It was like, where am I? I'm lost. Like, I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. And that part of me was in the void. And I could feel I was in that part of myself. And I was saying, like, how do I bring it back? And the God Source said, well, there is actually at this point no pathway between it and you. So it literally is alone in the void, just in the darkness. And the void isn't a bad space. It's also the birth canal, it's the womb, it's the infinite potential. So it's sort of lingering in that space and wanting to be found. And I asked the God Source, like, how do I save it? Like, how do I find it? And the God Source said, you find it over time, Lisa. It's going to show itself to you. So when I open up to new experiences, when I actually walk my pathway, when I go on my journey, when I continue to explore myself and explore my choices and explore this world, those parts are going to come to me. They're going to show themselves through experience. And when they show themselves, I'm going to be like, oh, wow, holy, I didn't know this was who I was. I didn't know that I liked digging in a garden. I didn't know that I liked, hanging out with a bunch of women on Sundays, whatever it is that I begin to do and I begin to explore. And maybe in that group, we're doing some sort of handwork, like knitting, I don't know what we're going to do. It's kind of showing me those things though. So that's exciting. And I didn't know that I liked those things until it begins to show itself to me. And then I'm going to be like, oh, wow, I didn't even know I had that gift. I didn't even know I had that ability. I didn't even know that thing was going to bring me joy. How exciting is that, to discover parts of ourselves in the middle of our lives? You know, like I'm literally midlife right now, and maybe a little bit further from my own timeline, or my string, because everybody has different strings and different timelines. So discovering who we are is exciting. It's like we get that hit of God, where God finally discovers something that it's been holding a space of curiosity for so long, and it finally is like, oh, I found the answer, like, ooh. And so that's a awesome feeling. You know, I love that feeling. I love it when I get that feeling, and when I get information that I've asked questions on and it comes to me, or I have an experience where it shows me the answer. It's just like, ah, yeah. So I think we're gonna have lots of those moments going forward. So let's see, is there anything else I want to touch on with the cylinders and loving our cylinder exactly how it is? Radically accepting. Oh yeah, I guess I'll touch on this real quick too. In that information, the God Source was telling me that when we radically accept ourselves, and in the past we didn't want to radically accept ourselves because that's a vulnerability. It's like, I don't want to admit that my cleaning ability is the pinprick. You know, I don't want to admit that my ability to play the piano is a pinprick. You know, I may not even want to admit that my ability to, my sixth sensory gifts is very large. That might also be scary to me. And I might not want to admit that in a world where people were literally exited for that in the past. And so it's about radically accepting our own selves first, so that we can clear fears and fear programs and duty programs and expectation programs of the external realm. And when we disintegrate those spaces, so for example, the God Source was talking to me about parenting, and when my daughter was leaving originally 2 years ago, when I started to have the first empty nesting experience, when she would go to university for 8 months of the year and no longer, you know, needed me as a mother in the same way, and started to really detach, in that time period, I had to radically accept. So there was parts that were coming up in the grief, of like, but I wanted to learn how to, you know, have a really clean house all the time, and to, you know, cook these large meals, and to be able to, you know, fold a towel and put it on their beds for them. You know, all of these things that I can see out in the world are things that other people can do, but aren't part of my gifts. And the God Source said, Lisa, it's okay that they didn't have those experiences. It's okay that you weren't able to create those experiences because of your cylinder, right? My cylinder is not created like that. You know, it's not that I wasn't doing things. It just wasn't those things that I wasn't doing. Most of my light was going through other parts, like therapy and getting a master's, and a lot of intellectual type things, but also a lot of soul type things. I'm a poet, you know, obviously I'm a creator. I wrote a book, you know, there's things that I've done, there's gifts and abilities that I have, but they're not those ones. So I was grieving a potential that I guess I probably dreamed of that, and that's what I wanted to be able to give them, but didn't have the capacity to give. And even there, actually, I can feel a sadness and a grief even as I'm talking about this. So I'm just going to face that space, and I'm just going to give myself that major mother love, because this is part of being human, and this is part of having a cylinder, and it's part of loving, and it's part of being an imaginative being where we imaginate a whole bunch of things that we hope or think that we can do and then can't do, and just allowing myself to feel that grief and that sadness. And underneath of that, you're going to notice a couple times today my voice, which is the throat chakra. And the throat chakra is sort of what allows us to go down into the body and access those spaces. And then it allows us to come up from those spaces and speak the truth. And this also is a time period where we're clearing the chakra and the neck, the spine. And we're giving ourselves the permissions to speak about these things that, people didn't speak of in the past. Again, because it was a vulnerability, because people didn't want to admit that they weren't perfect. They didn't want to admit that they had parts of self that were a small part of the cylinder versus the larger parts of the cylinder, when other people have large parts of the cylinder in the past, because we were all told that we were all meant to be the exact same, and that this is the ideal, and if you're not the ideal, you're failing, right? So we didn't want to admit these things. We didn't want to go into them. We didn't want to face them. We didn't want to look at them. These are some of those spaces that mother love that I was talking about in the last 6 to 8 videos that we're accessing in this time period that's never been accessed before, for places that are extremely painful. But they don't have to be painful. They were just stagnated pain. And they're not even our pain. They're multi-generational pain. So when I begin to face that space and I begin to normalize that not all moms are like that. Not all moms can do it all. Not all moms are going to be able to do that. In my own lifetime, I'm obviously not going to be able to, because my daughter's already gone. She's not going to have that experience. But she had a bunch of other experiences, when I can radically accept those spaces, when I can love myself in that space and begin to radically accept those spaces, the gods were said it's almost like a percentage, like a stat, right? That's kind of how it was showing it to me. So say I radically accept that I did, of all the things a parent can do, I got 72% at parenting, which is probably high. 68 might be more accurate. So if we can radically accept that number, because my 68 or my 72, whatever that number is for me, is actually my 100. That was me giving 100% at it. At no point in time was I not giving 100%. So that 62 or that 68 or that 72 is my 100. And it's like, no, Lisa, you did everything that you could. That is your 100, and it's enough. You're enough. You did good. And so when I own that and radically love myself there and radically accept that, I had a hair on my nose somewhere, but I think it's gone. Tickle, distraction. When I radically love myself in that space and accept that, then no one else can really say anything to me about it. So if somebody comes to me and they're like, oh, you did this, you were only that, it's not going to hurt my heart or anything else, because I'm just going to be like, yeah, that's true. And what's your number? How did you do? Right? And maybe they did 80. Well, that's good for them. They did 80 in that realm, but there's not just parenting as a realm. There's a whole bunch of other realms, like how much authenticity did you live? How much did you love yourself into wholeness? How much playful things did you do with your children? Because I did a whole heck of a lot of playful. In playful, I'm at like 92, well, maybe 88. And whatever that is, I can own it. And when I own it and someone tries to come back to me in the future or tries to say something to me today, I'm fine with that. I can actually radically accept what they're saying. So if my children come back to me in the future and say, Mom, why didn't you have the clean house all the time and have that folded towel on the bed? I'll say because 68 was my maximum. And I'm sorry that I couldn't give you that experience. It just wasn't part of this human. It wasn't part of my capacities. It wasn't part of my cylinder. And I love you, and I always loved you. And I hope you see that, right? So we begin to hold this gentler, more honest, truthful space with our own selves, loving ourselves there, and then begin to be able to hear it from others and to be able to hold that space as well. So it's about radical acceptance. It's about loving ourselves in these spaces. It's about facing our own selves and allowing ourselves to feel the grief and the sadness and the loss and the annoyance and the frustration, and to know that those are all parts of the human experience, and to alchemize them, and to know that we're still alive, we're still doing it. This isn't the end. We'll see what happens as we move forward. New gifts and abilities and skills will come as we move forward. Answers to spaces that we're asking those questions will come as we move forward. And I don't have to hold the pain for the answers to come. And actually, the answers are going to be a lot more likely to come if I'm not holding the pain. So, for example, in regards to the fires, what's doing this? What's leading to this? If I'm holding the pain there, I'm actually still engaging the past experiences or the stagnation. But if I actually clear the pain and just say, you know what, these answers are coming, they're going to come, they always come, we'll find the answers, and as a human collective, we'll begin to solve them as they come. I'm not going to be stagnated on why we didn't and who did this and all of that, which is actually going to keep me stuck in the pain spaces of God, in the darkness, and in the stagnation. So so I'm going to clear all of that, because I do recognize that's a whole bunch of information. That's been information that's been percolating in me to share with you, and now we're just going to heal those spaces. So Source, God, Mother, I acknowledge and accept everything that we've been speaking of today, starting with the fires and the smoke and the way that the smoke has been affecting the humans. Oh, I also want to just touch too in here. Sometimes I will break a little bit in a release. I'm going to be holding the space of the release right now. So sometimes people can feel like a really heavy energy because I haven't cleared it yet, or almost like their consciousness is kind of like they're going to sleep. That's because I'm holding that space of God right here. So, but I do need to touch on, already just in saying that, I can't remember, but it is going to come back. I know it. So here we go. I'm going to clear that anyways. But that's a good thing to know when we kind of hold in a release. You can feel those things. That's normal and natural. It's just part of going into pain spaces, going into the shadow realm, and clearing it from our mind, body, spirits, and souls. And sometimes that cylinder or that human is kind of going to step to the side, and you're going to naturally go back into that light that's inside of all of us. It's that same light. We're all the same thing inside. That's why we all are one. And that's the God source. And yeah, we have a particular collective of that light in a soul that potentially is moving lifetime after lifetime, but it's still that same shared light, and it still has access to everything that's in the light. And so we're just going to pull ourselves into the center of that cylinder, and we're going to clear these wounds, and these wounds around the smoke, around the fires, around the death and the dying, around the people suffering losses and grief, around not knowing if it's coming to us, around asthmas and effects of the body being sort of less patience and in more chaos, kind of that sense of blending day into day into day, that lack of that vitamin D. And at the same time, all of this sun activity is stimulating growth and expansion and higher frequency and more chaos around us and even inside of us. That's what I was going to mention. That right now we are in an eclipse portal. So that eclipse portal started on Sunday with the sun eclipse, and it will complete on around the 28th with the moon eclipse. And what I've noticed in the last few years, when we go into these portals, we're literally going into shadow and darkness, and there is a lot more pain space that comes up here, and it tends to particularly come up around bodies and body sickness, body illness, the way we're eating, the way we're treating our bodies, gratitude for our bodies are sort of the lessons that will come out of the experiences that we have. And it's going to be a little more heavy and deep while we're inside of that portal. And so I think I mentioned this in my last video, and not even 2 days into this portal, my dad swallowed a wasp, and at first they thought he was having a heart attack. He couldn't breathe. He was spitting all over the place. It was triggering the hell out of my mother, because my mother was like, why are you spitting everywhere? What are you doing? Why are you being so rude? Because he was like swearing and freaking out because he wasn't doing well, because he couldn't breathe. And yeah, that's the chaos of this time period. That's the things that can happen within the portal. And really, at the end of the day, he needed to go to the hospital. He got treated. They gave him a shot, and he could start to breathe again. And like, what are the chances of swallowing a wasp? And we looked it up online, and apparently a wasp can survive up to 2 minutes inside a human being. So you can just imagine, it was like sting, 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 you know? So yeah, my poor dad, that's what he just went through. And right away I was like, this is that, you know, this is the eclipse. This is the body stuff that's coming up. Step back, Lisa. Send prayers into your dad. I checked in with God Source. Is he going to be okay? Yes, he's going to be okay. You know, don't freak out. Don't go into panic, fear, terror. Try to stay in that state of loving yourself into wholeness. Step back and be in the middle of that cylinder, you know, step out of the body, be in that light, and love the human where the human's needing love. Radically accept this experience and send out prayers, right? So that's the key of these time periods. And Source God Mother recognizing that our bodies are being affected by this increasing frequency that's coming in from the sun, this ionic excitement and stimulation, and that we're feeling things in the body like massive fatigue, dizziness, nausea, sleeplessness, that sort of sweating feeling, which to me probably is connected to greater anxiety. Like when you get that sweat, it's like, oh, I'm going to puke, or something's going to happen, something's wrong, is the feeling. And it's part of the stimulation of our bodies right now. So we just want to normalize and alchemize that, and even normalize and alchemize it if you were about to puke, or if you know, something was wrong and something was happening. I'm safe even there. The human needs to be present to those experiences as well, because that's where we access creativity. So Source God Mother, please help us with this. And I also want to say that the creativity that we use in one experience isn't necessarily the creativity that we're going to use in another experience. And so we try to go to the head to be like, what should I do? What do people say you should do? What did I do last time? And really, that isn't the most beneficial thing you can do for yourself. It's just to be like, yes, this is happening. I radically accept this. This happens to humans. I'm safe even here. Soul, love me here. You know, God Source, give me all the love I need. My team, my angels, ancestors, and elementals, help me through this. My body knows what to do. My body's going to be safe. You know, the information is in front of us. I just need to access it. I need to walk there so that I can access it. Please help me to gently get there and to get the answer for this particular experience. And please help us to clear those fears around, the fires and the increasing fires and this cycle of being human on the earth plane and nature at this time and what we're going through, so that we can access the purity and the truth and the clarity and the creativity underneath, so that we can begin to get creative in these spaces, and so that we can put those prayers out, that in all timelines we find the answers, and in all timelines we collectively come together to find the solutions, and that's what we're choosing into our futures. And I recognize that I have my very own cylinder, and that potentially I've attacked my cylinder over time, and maybe even covered fully over some of those holes that are in this human being, that are meant to be shining light, that have never seen light. And recognize that I'm going to find those over time as we come into our greater and greater authenticity. We'll be able to find those spaces, we'll be able to access those spaces, and we'll be able to utilize those spaces into the future for the growth of ourselves and for the growth of this universe. And that will be a magical experience, and we can look forward to those experiences because there's so much like oneness that comes, and magic that comes, and excitement that comes. And I clear any and all programs, modes of functioning, ways of existing. Lisa did talk about those toxic dynamics of the doer, the sickness, and the selfish. And if I can clear those for me even before the information, that would be awesome and amazing, including toxic dynamics, modes of functioning, ways of existing, pain spaces, contracts, binds, barriers, hooks, codes of the past. If we can clear all of that from our mind, body, spirits, and souls, we want that. We choose that. And we neutralize, harmonize, and alchemize those spaces back to dust. We clear that old DNA and RNA. We disintegrate it back to dust. We initiate the new, and we reconfigure for each unique blueprint, allowing repairing and reconnection and wholeness, and accessing life force frequency, oxytocin. Interesting. So this is also neuronal and nervous system, which with the increased compassion and comfort and safety, it will also begin to alter our hormonal systems and our ability to balance our reactions to the natural experiences of this human that we're inside of and within this plane of existence. Ooh, that's awesome and amazing. We clear, cleanse, neutralize, harmonize, and alchemize all old modes of functioning and ways of existing, karma, drama, and pulling out the dharma and trauma. Sometimes when I get into this space, it's hard for me to pick up the other string because there's something else that wants to be seen. Let me just hold this space for a second here. As the sun is learning to, or giving itself permission to let off the extra light or steam or reaction, like chemical reaction, we're learning not to be affected by it in our own bodies and just radically allowing for that process, and even learning by example that we too can have chemical reactions that we let off from inside of ourselves the light that we let out that's created by it, or that burst of momentum, and to not be affected by that from one another. And it's going to increase our abilities to let go of reaction and to hold a space of peace and love and presence and safety within ourselves, even as we go through the experience ourselves or around that experience. And yes, we want this. This sounds awesome and amazing. And we give those permissions to clear these spaces and to clear these old modes of functioning and these old pathways and these old modes of reaction, so that true reaction can have a space to exist. So we're not going to have the thought reactions, so that the chemical reactions have a space to exist, so that our bodies have the right to let go of what they need to let go of when they need to let go of it. And we're going to love ourselves through those processes. So it's going to bring more peace, calm, and harmony to this planet. And yes, of course we want that. We give all permissions for that as well. And we clear, cleanse, neutralize, harmonize, and alchemize that DNA and RNA back to us, so that we can initiate the new and reconfigure for each unique blueprint of the plants, animals, air, earth, and water, for all of those beings within this universe. Universal change is what we're talking about here. And we release all drama, karma, trauma, pull out the dharma, neutralize, purify, clear, cleanse, and heal from the cellular, energetic, and magnetic structures, and from the subconscious, unconscious, and conscious minds, pulling all of that through to oneness, to wholeness, to peace, to truth, to love. Welcoming those helper beings and those helper frequencies into these spaces to continue to help us to access these spaces and to utilize them as we move forward in those good ways. I just feel so much happiness and peace in that space now. Like, that was something that I can feel was just came from my belly, and that came from my pure connection to the God source, that piece of information and that invitation to clear these things that are coming up in this time period. And so there's one of those places where like, the answer came. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And thank you for being here as I received that answer. So we clear through the children and up through the ancestral webs, past lifetimes and their webs, and for the collective universal who are open to it at this time, including all planetary systems and on all sides of the veil in this universe and in the multiverses. We quantum forgive those old modes of functioning, those old ways of existing, those old ways of being in relationship with ourselves, those old ways of being in relationship with our cylinder, those old ways of cutting off parts of the cylinder, those old ways of agreeing to cut off parts of ourselves for the sake of others' well-being before our own, which is called neglecting the self. So we neglected the self so that others didn't have to feel neglected. And we're alchemizing those programs back to us. Those are old ways of existing, and we're so sorry, self. We're so sorry, body, that we didn't have this information before. We're so sorry, forests and stagnation and pain spaces and grief and suffering and sorrow and all of those things that panic, fear, terror, frustration, annoyance that didn't get cleared, that didn't get faced, that didn't get purified, and return to their natural origins, which is flow. And we clear, cleanse, and heal all of that now through all quantum fields. And we purify back to the God source origins, welcoming those collective healed helpers, those beings of light, those doctors, healers, and nurses in all realms of existence, to continue to purify and alchemize these spaces and drop us into those original blueprints, those original codes, and to continue these healings until completed. And we give so much love and gratitude to those helper beings and helper frequencies, those angels, ancestors, and elementals, and those beings of light that are here with us, helping us, guiding us to our higher self, to that internal, that light at the center of our cylinder. Thank you to our own part of God that's inside of us. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you so much. We love you so much. We know that we're all working together as one. And we clear, cleanse, and heal all of that now through all quantum fields, and we're open to receive for best and the highest well-being. With love and gratitude, I choose this. So I choose this and breathe. And I'm just going to do an energetic clearing. And right before I do that, I can feel tons of energy going through my body. So we're just going to visualize ourselves above our body and just pushing all of that extra energy out of our body that we don't need to hold, that doesn't belong to us, that's maybe stimulated by our external environment or by those chemical reactions. And we're just going to clear it out of our bodies by opening up our palms and our feet. So we have those portal openings, and we're just going to open them up and push out all that extra energy. Just let it go, let it go, let it go. Okay, perfect. And so Source God Mother, please immediately evolute our systems for best and highest well-being of the systems within us and the systems around us, including those frequencies of our feet. Please immediately evolute those frequencies of our feet so that as we ground down into the insides of our feet, we have everything we need to move forward in good ways and to access our truth and to calm and comfort ourselves and find that safety. I also ask that you root us from our root chakra, which is like the orange and yellow, even the yellow, orange. It's the lower half of the body, the red chakras, genitals, really all the way down the legs, the feet, and into the form realm, so that our bodies are fully and completely rooted through our universal star to this form realm. So the earth star, the universal star, and we're exchanging that life force frequency, the healing codes, knowledge and wisdom, the ability to speak to them, connect into them, communicate with our family of nature, and to have those loving relationships with them as we have these loving relationships with ourselves. And we fractalize those healings through our mind, body, spirits, and souls. And we allow that light, that harmonic frequency and that light into those parts of our cylinders that's really trying to shine through, and maybe that we just cleared some of that dark goo from, so that we can begin to access those parts of self. We clear, cleanse, and heal all of that now. And also what they're showing me is the more we shine that light through our cylinder, the more that nature sees us, and the more that it sees us, the more that it sees that our color, whatever our frequency is. So if that cylinder begins to spin, it begins to make a sound, our own particular sound, our own music. And as our music makes its sound, then we begin to find other music that's similar, and we begin to create a symphony together. So we begin to attract other like frequencies. And yes, we want that. And yes, that we choose that. That sounds awesome and amazing. Please help us with that as well. And we clear, cleanse, and heal all of that now through all quantum fields, and we're opening to receive for best and highest well-being. With love and gratitude, I choose this. So I choose this and breathe. And we're just going to take a nice etheric breath. So imagining ourselves taking a breath from the ethers. Rejuvenating ourselves. And if you want to take an etheric breath for all of those that need it in this time period, so plants, animals, those in the fires, those who are suffering, anybody outside of your own existence, intending that their bodies get rejuvenated at the same time. And if you're feeling lightheaded, because I was just channeling some serious energy there, or connecting in and receiving is actually more accurate, then just ground me to my feet. And of course, please trigger my vagus nerve now. And we were just doing vagus nerve work. We were doing body nerve work, and the vagus nerve is the one that helps us to bring comfort, calm, and that mother love into those spaces. So please trigger my vagus nerve now. Whee! Feels so good. So I I hope you love that information. Please share this information with anyone that you think needs it. Please talk about this amongst other people. Share this information through your throat chakra, and through your healing codes are naturally going to be sharing this information with anybody that you walk around, and they won't even know it, but they'll be shifting just because you've shifted. And so that's the magic of this existence. And yeah, us. Way to go doing this work. If you have any questions, if you have anything to share, please share it below. If there's anything you want me to touch on at a greater depth, please let me know. If there's something that you saw when we were doing this, please share it below. Please ring that bell, subscribe, because the more that you subscribe and ring that bell and share this out, the more that YouTube will do that for the people that need it the most, because the more of us that are in oneness and wholeness, the more of us that are shining our lights, the more of us that are singing our songs, the more of us that are consciously choosing, the more of us that are creating those high timelines, the easier and gentler this existence will unfold in health and wellness. And so share. Sharing is caring. And lots of love from me and Evie to you. May peace be with you. May you find the peace that you're looking for. And lots of love until next time. Take care. Bye.